Parliamentary reporters dictation number 15 at the speed of 140 words per minute from Kailash Chandra shortened transcription number 186 187. Last 5 seconds. Ready? Start. In dealing with the railway staff, I think there is no question of great importance than that of assuring the class 4 staff of a prospect of continuous advancement in proportion to their merit. Now the Railway Inquiry Committee referred to this matter about 8 years ago. I scan the Railway Board's report every year in order to see what progress has been made in this matter and how far training has been provided for the staff and new avenues of promotion opened out to them. But I am disappointed year after year. I am therefore glad to learn that the Railway Minister is attending to this question. I have no time, sir, to refer to the recommendations of the Railway Inquiry Committee because I have got only 6.5 minutes more, but I should request him to place the recommendations of that committee and the estimates committee before the committee that he has appointed. One of the most important recommendations made by the Railway Inquiry Committee was that efforts should be made to make every member of class 4 staff literate. All our workers should be literate just as all our soldiers are, and although education is not the responsibility of the railways, yet I think that it will be in the interest of the railways themselves if they attend to the education of their workers. Now, sir, I come to one or two general questions which I think are of great importance. The burden on the railway board is increasing year after year. It has been increasing for 6 or 7 years almost now, yet the size of the board remains what it was. I know that some additional members were appointed by the railway minister last year in order to help the members of the railway board. I personally do not think that this was a satisfactory method of dealing with the problem of increased work. I hold the view that it is better to increase the strength of the board than to add to the number of officers. I should, however, like to know how far this experiment has succeeded. The railway minister has not said a word about it in his budget speech, although it is a matter of great importance. I should also like to know what the status of these additional members will be in the setup of the railways. Another question to which I would like to refer is that of decentralization. I referred to this question last year also, but I do not think the Railway Ministry has paid the slightest attention to this question. Railway plans throw a heavy amount of work on every officer or member of the railway board down to the divisional superintendent and the officers under him. Is it not necessary therefore to do two things? The first point that I would like to refer to is the need for seeing whether there is any work done now by the railway board that can be transferred to the general managers. Can we throw greater responsibility on the general managers, allowing them to decide certain questions, even some important questions, instead of concentrating everything in the hands of the railway board? The policy of centralization may be necessary in certain respects, but I do not think that the extent to which it has been followed has been conducive to efficiency or to the development of the initiative of the general managers and the officers under them. The other question is this: is everything done now necessary, or is there some work that is done at present that has been rendered unnecessary by the march of events? This clearly calls for a job analysis, and I think that sooner this question is attended to, the better. Lastly, we should also see whether the quantum of work that a responsible officer has to deal with is such as he can cope with efficiently. The work should not be so heavy as to prevent him from touring or giving some time to thinking out the new problems that are constantly presented to him in connection with the additional burden thrown on him. I think that this calls for a re-examination of the size of the railway zones, notwithstanding the divisionalization that has taken place in three more railway administrations. There is a limit to the work that can be done even under a divisionalized administration, and I think it will be wise of the Railway Ministry and the Railway Board to look into this matter while they have time to do things right. If they wait for 5 years, things may come down with a crash, and it may not be easy for them to maintain the old efficiency, let alone further improvement. This question, so far as I know, has received no attention from government. The importance of giving the officers at the present time for touring, for developing personal contacts and giving personal supervision and guidance has not been adequately examined so far. Sir, I shall deal with the question straight away. So far as permanent or temporary workers are concerned, the provision specifies the period of service, and it has been further defined that so many days of service constitute continuous service for a year. About what action will be taken against the employer if he fails to implement the provisions of the law. The law has made provision. Compensation is a legal obligation and it can be enforced. Sir, I have not to add very much to what I said at the outset. I find that the reactions to this proposed legislation proceed from two different and opposite angles, and if I might submit, the two extreme views put forward are based on some kind of misunderstanding or imperfect understanding of the aims of this legislation and the ends which are sought to be achieved through it. They are limited aims. They are twofold aims. Firstly, coming to the views expressed by my honorable friend Dr. Mukherjee, the question was viewed chiefly from the interests of the industry, and from the other side, the question was viewed chiefly from the interest of workers. We have tried to balance both these things, but no claim is being made that through this legislation all that can be claimed on behalf of the industry or on behalf of the workers is going to be achieved, because the two aims are fair deal to the workers and that production should not be curtailed, and also that the industry should not suffer. Now, this legislation also has two aspects. One is the attempt to prevent closures through the deterrent effect of these provisions. That there is a good deal of substance in this approach will be evident from the fact that in the first case, when an ordinance was promulgated, a number of closures which had threatened actually did not materialize. This means that sometimes the closures were not really so very necessary and that there were no compelling reasons. There may be some consideration of avoidance of a little loss in time when there is depression, when one can do without additional production and things like that. The limited interest of a particular individual employer and not the larger national interest concerning production or the interest of the employees may perhaps be the consideration. In these cases, this legislation has a salutary effect. It will still have that effect when we pass this law now, but if either the workers or those who are very keen to have no curtailment of production think that this is going to stop closures, it is not so. Other things have to be done in order to prevent closures which are preventable. Some suggestions have been made by my honorable friend here. They are very good suggestions, but they do not directly concern us here. We have to do other things. We have got the Industries Development and Regulation Act, and we can put into use the various provisions of that act also. Something of that kind was done before in the case of one concern to which my honorable friend there made a reference. I may inform the House that even in the case of closures which have occurred and regarding which we received information, we started acting. I believe that some inquiries are in progress and it is quite possible that where this legislation which we are going to pass may not come to our rescue, something else may possibly be done. There are suggestions like standardization of wages, decasualization, etc. And there will be other suggestions also. Why is it that a management, because of its inefficiency, because of neglect, allows the concern to run down to that condition that it ceases to have its competitive position in industry? Various things can be considered, but this is not the place for that. Similarly, so far as employees are concerned, something is being done on their behalf. First, if the legislation succeeds in preventing a closure, to that extent, unemployment is warded off. To the extent it does not succeed, some relief is afforded to the workers. They get some compensation, but that does not exhaust all that workers may be able to secure from industry at the time of termination of their service. There may be provisions for gratuity, etc. They are not ruled out, they are not eliminated by these provisions. Therefore, the scope of this legislation does not cover fully, either on the ground of continued production and of averting unemployment, or in the case of unemployment, of what is going to be done for the employees. So sir, in that limited context, we have to view the propriety of the various clauses that are being considered here. Regarding some specific points made, it was urged that we have brought this bill at the fag end of the session and therefore we are not giving enough time for consideration. That is a question which depends upon the convenience of the house.